Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Hope everybody's having a good start to their holiday season. Today, we're going to look at how you can leverage a modern analytics platform like Power BI to help you drive your construction job performance through better analysis of your business data by identifying trends and correlations and outliers. So, just a few housekeeping items just before we get into the bulk of the content. We are going to make the recording and slides available to you after the presentation if you'd like to reference those or share them with your coworkers. We'll also save some time at the end for questions. So please use the Q&A panel to record any of those questions that you might have as we go through the session today. All right. So the agenda for today is going to be covering a sort of an evolution of construction analytics and how we got to this modern state that we're currently in. We'll take a look at some of the leading analytics platforms on the market and give you a brief reasoning of why we have standardized on Power BI. And then I'm excited to have Ben Harrison here, who's going to lead us through 4 different types of analyses in Power BI. We have under billings and over billings. We'll look at some profit analysis and some gain and fade scenarios, and we'll look at cash flow analysis as well as some historical cost analysis. And then again, at the end, we'll open it up for questions. All right, so my name is David Kettinger, and I'm the head of marketing here at Preferred Strategies. I've been working with Power BI and related analytics platforms for going on 11 years now. So I'm a big data nerd, which you'll probably realize as I start going through some of these slides here. But I'm excited again to have Ben Harrison, who's our VP of Product Management, join us. Ben has a wealth of experience in the construction analysis space, working for big construction companies as well as Viewpoint. And I'm excited to have him showcase some of the demos that he's put together for you guys. So real quick, Preferred Strategies is really an enterprise analytics provider that operates as an extension of your data team. And we've been around since 2002. And over the last 23 years, we've helped hundreds of customers bridge the gap between complex corporate systems like ERP and enterprise performance management applications and the leading analytics and business intelligence technologies. So our quick launch solution is really designed for companies who've realized they need to replace these legacy reporting tools and move to more modern cloud-based data platforms like Power BI. All right, so let's jump into the evolution of analytics. And I thought to start, we just look at the origin of analytics. So this is going to be sort of a journey from BC or before Christ all the way to today in this modern era. So imagine it's ancient Greece and you're in a bustling Athenian marketplace, and philosophers are gathering and debating and analyzing and searching for meaning in the world. And among them is this guy named Aristotle, and he's a thinker who believes in understanding by breaking complex ideas into parts. And that's a process that he calls analysis. And this early method of understanding problems by dividing them into smaller pieces really laid the groundwork for what we call analytics today. So if you fast forward to the 19th century, there was another visionary named Charles Babbage, who's often considered to be, the father of the computer. And he saw this potential in using machines to analyze large sets of numbers for engineering and science applications. And so Babbage designed this analytical engine, which was really just a mechanical machine capable of computing and analyzing information. And though he never really built this out, his ideas paved the way for for a new world where machines could help people analyze data and ultimately make better decisions. And so with the arrival of the 20th century, businesses began realizing that numbers told stories. And early companies were tracking profits and losses and costs. And these numbers could be analyzed to understand business health and start to predict trends. And in the 1970s and 1980s, with the advent of the digital computer, data analysis really expanded rapidly. And some of the big industries like finance, marketing, and healthcare were some of the early adopters of this. But now it's really spread to really every industry, including construction. And so, analytics has evolved into this essential field in today in the modern era, and it's being driven by big data and AI and machine learning. And these advanced algorithms are really able to process enormous amounts of data in seconds and deliver insights that were really unimaginable to Aristotle and Babbage. So, analytics is no longer about breaking things into smaller parts. It's about harnessing a powerful flow of information to make data-driven decisions. And the story of analytics continues to evolve and grow more sophisticated with each generation. But I think it's always rooted in this original quest to understand and predict and optimize the world around us. So the first step to really harnessing analytics and becoming data driven is acceptance. You need to honestly evaluate and accept where you and your company are from a data maturity perspective in order to create a plan to improve and get to where you want to be. And so, regardless of where you are at today, your goal should be to continuously work to understand, predict, and optimize your business through data. And another way to evaluate where you are on the analytics maturity perspective is this analytics maturity curve that I believe SAP put out a few years ago. And the basic premise here is that as your analytics maturity increases, so will the competitive advantage that your business has. And so on the left, you have your more traditional descriptive and diagnostic analytics, or what happened and why did it happen. And as we go up on the maturity curve, we have predictive and prescriptive analytics, or what will happen and what should we do when it does. And then lastly, we have this new, more cutting edge autonomous systems like generative AI and self-driving cars. And so in the middle of these two groups, you can see there's this chasm, which many companies really struggle to cross over because of limited data skills, limited resources, and technology constraints. And you can really imagine it like to the left of the chasm is like looking into a rear view mirror, and to the right is like looking into a navigation system. So while it's important to know where we're coming from, it's even more important to know where we're going. And so we'll look into these concepts a little bit more as we dive into the session. But first, I wanted to again just give a little bit of an evolution of BI and analytics in the construction space. So when we started on this business intelligence train, it was really led by data experts in IT. And the IT department was really in charge of everything from the data preparation to actually building their reports in the dashboards. So you had these scorecards and KPIs and dashboards, and the scene was really dominated by larger companies like SAP and MicroStrategy. But the reality was that these tools were largely inaccessible to the broader business audience or business users, which meant these business users were left with really long wait times in order to get answers to their questions. And then really the late 2000s, mid 2000s, it's all started to shift to more of a self-service BI technology approach, which enabled power users and data analysts to do some of that data preparation, data modeling, as well as building, reports and dashboards. But this phase or wave was not without its challenges either. So governance started factoring it into the equation, and businesses started realizing they didn't have the right checks and balances in place in order to manage this change in roles from IT-led to business user-led. And that really resulted in a lot of data silos being created, dirty data, as well as sort of these shadow IT systems. And so now we enter this new sort of modern era of BI and analytics, and it's really an IT enabled and business user centric approach. So you have IT sort of helping the business users answer their own questions. So it's this really sort of a self-contained architecture that enables these non-technical users to go and do the self-service reporting and analysis. So when we look at, some of the who's leading this space from an analytics platform perspective. Many of you might be familiar with Gartner and their Magic Quadrant for analytics and business intelligence. This is an interactive version that I built out in Power BI, and I've been updating for the past 10 years or so. And it's pretty cool because it allows you to see the historical trends of the vendors. And for those that aren't familiar with Gartner, they analyze all the vendors in a particular sector, in this case, the analytics and BI sector, and then they rank the top 20 or so based upon their completeness of vision, which is on the x-axis down here, as well as their ability to execute, which is on the y-axis. And the goal is to be in the upper right-hand quadrant, which is called the leaders quadrant. And so if we look back, 2021 or so, the scene was really dominated by three players. It was Microsoft, Tableau, and Qlik. And some of you might even use these tools today. However, if you fast forward to 2024, the latest one, you'll see that there's a lot more leaders in the quadrant. So you have like Oracle, you have Google, ThoughtSpots, and several others that are really close on the edge of this leaders quadrant. This just tells you that there's a lot of investment going into data analytics from an industry standpoint, and the gap is starting to minimize between these companies. So it's been pretty interesting to follow that trend. But if I select one of these, like Microsoft here, you'll be able to see how they have trended over the past 10 years or so. And you can see that Microsoft has really been a clear leader or winner in both the categories, ability to execute and completeness of vision. And really, this dominance has been driven by just how massive their user adoption's been. They're well above average functionality from a feature standpoint. They have very flexible pricing, so a lot of companies that are already adopting their enterprise software may already have licenses to Power BI, which has driven their success. And then they have a lot of integration with Azure and Teams and other Microsoft tech stack products. And then they just have this really ambitious product roadmap that has this continuous development cycle. So they're constantly updating their platform throughout the year. And when you take a step back and say, okay, well, how are these companies being evaluated? It's really on these feature sets that are common throughout all of these leading analytics platforms. So the mandatory ones are things like data visualization and reporting, data preparation. How well do these platforms integrate with data science technologies? And then how well are businesses able to govern them and collaborate on their analytics workflows? And then some of the common ones that are emerging are around how machine learning and AI is being integrated to help business users create automated insights. And there's this new concept of centralized metrics layers, which are becoming more popular. The ability to use generative AI to create data stories automatically, as well as the ability to just speak to your data sets through natural language query. So as you can see, there are a lot of powerful features in these modern platforms. But in order to really harness them, you need to be able to connect to all your company's data sources and then create a business friendly data model that business users can use. And this is really what our quick launch solution solves for you. So we're merging your siloed corporate data sources into a modern cloud-based data architecture. And then we model that data into a centralized data model that your business users can connect to with Power BI or Excel for self-service business reporting and analysis. And so as you can see at the bottom here, we have some of the benefits that come with this. You know, you can automate your workflow so business users aren't doing these manual, repetitive processes where they're extracting data into Excel and manipulating the data and only to do it again next week or next month. You also establish better governance and data security policies for your organization and reduce the data latency or increase the data refresh process so that you're ensuring business users are getting the latest information that they need. And then ultimately, what we're doing is we're providing one source of truth that business users can leverage in any tool that they want to. And this is really what drives trust and adoption of the solution. So with that background, I'm going to jump into the next slide, which is the different demos that Ben's going to walk us through from a construction analytics perspective. So Ben, take it away.
Thank you, David. Okay, so let me see, make sure I can share the right screen. It's always a big challenge for me. Okay, hopefully you can see a whip report.
You can see it.
Okay, cool. So this, I wanted to start here because I did this for 18 years. I was a business manager slash business analyst at a construction company for 18 years. And I looked at a whip report every month for 18 years. And, you know, the olden days, I printed out, we had maybe 300 active jobs. So I had probably 30, 40 pages to report to look through. And I was looking for anomalies, I was looking for issues, for problems. And that's kind of that early days when that analysis took a lot of time, right? Well, preparing the data took a lot of time. I didn't spend as much time analyzing, but one of the things that the modern platform should do is allow you to hone in on issues that you want to find. So I might have looked at percent complete, and I can sort that now here in this application to say, okay, do I have any jobs that are over 100% complete? Now, that used to happen to me every month. Looking at the whip report before, I'd have to search through column by column, row by row to look for anomalies. Or maybe I'd be looking for backlog. And I was particularly interested if there's any negative backlog on a job. If it is, it means that my contract amount was wrong, or my actual cost had gone over the projected final cost. And that just means that someone hadn't followed a process well. So again, that analysis, once it's in a tool like this, is much, much faster, much easier, much easier to start finding those outliers or those anomalies or those even trends. I'll get to the trends in a minute. One of the things that I haven't done in this particular version of this report is to create some color coding alarms, right? So I could easily say, well, if percent complete is negative, make it bright red or backlight it in yellow. There's a lot of ways to add kind of those things that I routinely find and check for in a whip report like this. But this is a static moment. This is my whip report for a single year, a single month, and looking at that data. What you really want to do is start looking at this data as a trend over time. Again, that's that idea that we're looking for outliers, correlations, and trends. And so I do have the ability to look at costs in excess, bills in excess. That's my overbilling and underbilling. That's assets or liabilities. And I want to look at that over as a trend over time. So in this case, I'm looking at really the same data set, but I've plotted it. So I'm looking at a whole year of data here, and I'm looking at month to date. So this is the change in month of cost in excess, bills in excess. Now, the neat thing that is true is if I was looking at the actual WIP report, I'd be seeing the job to date values, and job to date wise, I'm doing okay, right? It's a trend in the right direction. But what I really care about is maybe a month to date point of view of that. What changed this month? And what is going on this month? Or maybe I care about how is it going this year? How are my over under billings behaving month by month on a year to date basis or month to date basis? And where this really mattered to me when I was doing this analysis, when I started looking at where's my risk to a company. So if I pick one of my project managers here, I'm going to pick Brett Favre. Um, in that case, Brett Favre's, I'm pretty happy with this. I'm getting, had an underbilling early on in the year, pretty big one, but then I've had consistent overbillings since that time. I have a really big underbilling in July, but again, a consistent sort of overbilling than underbilling. The trend over time matters to me. Now, if I compare that maybe to another one of my project managers, Drew Brees, I've got here a period of 3 months where I underbilled consecutively. Now, I'm not going to pick on Drew Brees. These are all fake names, but I'm concerned about any sort of underbillings that happen for more than 2 months a year. I'd go to WIP reviews and the project manager would promise me that, oh, don't worry, I'm going to get that change order, that will be okay on that. I can't, bill it until I get the change order approved. Well, if you've been promising me that for 3 months and it's not approved yet, I'm starting to get a little bit worried. So again, the idea that the anomalies or the errors, the things I'm going to find out are less seen at the moment in time and are better seen as a trend over time, and looking for, where do I have an issue that I might want to be concerned about. And let me go back to the total. So again, I see different things if I'm looking at a month to date issue versus a year to date. And any job is going to have over under billings as we go further. But being able to kind of analyze that and see where my issues are is a real part of that over under billing analysis. The next thing I wanted to look at was kind of a profit analysis. So I'm going to go to my next report. In this case, I wanted to look at where profit comes from. So what I've built here in this report is I've put profit into 4 components. So total profit's 220 million in this case on job to date for a set of active jobs. And that profit comes from 4 places. One is estimated original profit, right? So what was the profit when we bid the job and got the job? So that's the original profit. Then I get profit out of change orders here, right? So I'm looking at original profit and change orders. And then I'm going to look at my cost variance. So I had planned to spend a certain amount of money, but maybe I can do it for less money than I bid, than on my budget. Or I might, obviously in this case it's red, so it means I spent more money than I planned to at my estimate, but that's a source of profit or loss. And then the last element is revenue variance. If you're a unit price contractor, and in our case, maybe we were raising manholes and the contract said to do 25, but when we got out there, there's actually 30. I get additional revenue for those increases in units, and that's really a revenue variance. So again, the 4 components are original bid profit, change order profit, cost variance, and revenue variance. And depending on the business processes at your company, you may not have all 3 of these categories. Maybe some of them get blended between revenue variances and change order profit, depending on how you're tracking estimates in the job. But in the end, though, I do see kind of the total components to make up my total profit. And I can start looking at individuals here. So if I went and looked at Jerry Rice, I can say, wow, he's pretty good at getting change orders. He's not that good at maybe beating his estimated cost. I might want to drill down on Jerry and just see more details about that. So I can say, well, which jobs is he doing really well on? This particular job, again, not beating cost. Wow, revenue cut and a cost variance, right? So more information here. What this would tell me then, if I was the controller, is I maybe need to have some conversations with Jerry's bosses or his division manager. And if I was Jerry's division manager, there might be some best practices we could talk about in terms of improving the cost variance, or actually he's doing a really good job on change orders. So probably don't need to worry about that particular element. But again, so this idea is that I'm in this analysis process. As I dig deeper, I'm able to do comparisons to look for, why does this work really well in this situation and not in some other situation? And that could be true in the case of customers as well. In this case, I'm looking at distinct customers along this side, and I can see, well, Neo White Legacy has we're not ever beating their costs, but we get really good change orders out of them. That's really nice. So original profit, and as much as that in change orders, that's something that we want to pay attention to. And again, it may be that we're not creating estimates for the costs, and so some of the cost is included in there. The net, though, is still pretty good. What you want to do, make sure that you don't have customers that you're operating at a loss in the long run. So this is the kind of a profit analysis, again, comparing, contrasting, looking for trends, looking for outliers, looking for people who I might need to be more careful with when I'm contracting. But in my opinion, the biggest opportunity for improvement really is in the cost variance. How can I make this work get done for less money than I planned for it? And part of that is where sandbagging comes in. Everyone knows that project managers tend to sandbag. And so I might want to analyze that, actual cost versus projected cost in more depth. So I have a page to do that. And this is a look at percent complete on this axis. Percent complete, the job 0% to 100%, all the jobs that are done end up on this axis. And on this axis is the estimated versus actual, or the over under budget. And what this really means is, if I was doing plotting this, I might have a number of different types of charts. The blue line represents, the blue dotted line represents, I finished it at budget. But jobs tend to go this way, and I'm drawing this little green line here. They tend to go this way, and at the end of the job, project managers release money, and the sandbags, you get this really jump up in profit at the end. Worst case, though, is you're going along, and at the end of the job, you take a sudden loss, right? Those are bad news. There's either really good news or really bad news. And what you find is that there's really 4 types of curves here. The curve you want is to bring these gains and fades as far to the left as possible. So in a perfect world, if I do a blue line here, I might say, well, I found out I had profit, and I took the profit there, and then maybe I finished the job, or maybe I got a little more profit, or maybe there's a little fade. But again, I knew about this early on in the job, and the project manager recognized it. The alternate would also be true. If I had a loss and I took the loss then, and then I was able to do that loss, we're much better off knowing about that loss back here than we are at the end of the job. In my mind, the nightmare type of curve that made everybody sad was this one here. It would be where you come along and you take a loss, you take another loss, you take another loss, you take another loss. And if you've been in construction long enough, you know that that type of curve is all too true. A job that goes bad gets worse. At least that was my experience. Is if one thing goes wrong, it's only a matter till another thing goes wrong. And those are the jobs that you want to pay a lot of attention to. The thing that's really true, again, if you're the construction controller or even a project, a division manager, is you're going to find that project managers tend to have a certain type of curve about them. So again, if I go back here and I say, well, let's look at Drew Breeze again. We'll just pick on him and say, show me Drew, Drew's, trend. his curves tend to trend up and to the right. That's kind of nice. Okay, so if I was analyzing, Drew's backlog, and I think how much chances they're going to be of profit or gain, this is a nice curve. I also like particularly this one, the gray curve at the bottom. Drew thought he had a loss, so he took it right away. Now he got that money back. That's probably just due to good management, but hiding that loss until the end wouldn't have been good. In this case, Drew let go of sandbag money all throughout the job. So again, I like that curve. Another curve that maybe is less happy is maybe Brett Favre. If I look at his data and his curve, and I go and look at the trend of that over time, you can see that the break-even line is here at 0. That's the dotted blue lines behind there. Brett Favre's projects have tended to fade. Now, that may not be his fault. Maybe he's our cleanup hitter we give all the bad jobs to, so that we lose as little as possible. But if I was analyzing my WIP report and trying to decide, I'm going to forecast out my profitability, what's the likelihood that Brett is projecting a job that there's a lot of sandbag money in that job, I would say probably not with Brett. So this becomes now an ability to really get more depth about the work in total, right? And how healthy is my portfolio? How good are my project managers at projecting their costs? And I actually believe, you give this information to the hands of a project manager, it will help them have better insight into what they bring to the table and what are their tendencies towards, accurate projecting of those costs. Companies rely on that projection of the cost. It's the biggest single driver of your WIP report. And so being able to analyze those personality types is really, really important and helpful. Okay, so we talked about profitability and profit fade gain. I wanted to move on now to another report that I hear about a lot in construction, and that's cash flow. And the other thing that I know from my own personal experience is that there's a dozen varieties of cash flow. And so every company I talk to, they say, I'd like to have a cash flow report, but they mean something different. It could be, looking at your general ledger, it could be looking at detail, payroll costs. In my case, for this particular report, I've decided to say my cash flow is this. I've got actual cost, I've got open AP. So essentially, actual costs are money I spent. You start at 0 and you spend that kind of a negative number, some money I spend. The open AP, you'll see it as I drill into it. That's a positive number. It's a green bar that offsets money spent. So I incur that cost of the job, but I didn't pay it. So it's not out of the company. Then I have billings, and I have open AR and retainage. And this should be able to give me some idea about, how is the cash flow going on a specific, for a specific project manager or a specific job. And so if I do that, let's go down. I do like John Madden. Here I can see that, on his jobs, and he has a lot of jobs open, and he spent 98 million in cost, and he's got just 199,000 in open AP. I can actually see that number over here. So that 98 million is driven by this actual cost. I have cost by a labor type and how much we spent on each one for each job. I might want more granularity to that. I've got my open AP. If I look at the actual billing, that's over here. What have I actually billed for that? And then the 6 million adjustment to that is the combination of AR open and AR retainage. That's money that I have not collected, even though I billed for it. So this gives me kind of a vision for that. If I again drill down into this, I can look at more details, and I might pick this particular job to see that, okay, well, I've got a 3.1 million open retainage here. So I'm still, I'm not good cash flow wise here. I'm out money because I've spent a lot of money. I've billed a bunch more, but I've not collected it. So this is something that would give me insight into that. And I can actually see down in this trend over time. Now, this is a month by month net, but so far this job has never been in a cash positive position. It's just been, money spent, money spent, money spent. So that trend over time is also going to help me understand a bit more about this. Let me drill back up to show the bigger picture on that cash flow over time. So, if you look at a given month by month, this would be my cash position. And I can start analyzing different jobs to say, well, this one by Tyler Perry always has been negative as well. But there are some jobs that maybe have always been negative, always been positive, or a variation of positive and negative. So again, a feel for cash flow, again, analyzing outliers, looking for places or people who have overperformed from a collection point of view. I'm really concerned with any of these numbers that might be over 60 days old. If they're in the 60 to column or higher, that money seems to be at risk. So from a cash flow, I would want to focus on that. And we have other reports where you could drill through to look at the aging and understand why we're not collecting the money that we should be. So there's a bunch of other ways to think about cash flow, but the point I'm trying to make is that you should be able to analyze that to get some insights into, where is that money? Is it open AP? Is it open AR? Are we underbilled? Did we spend money and not do any billings at all? That's the type of aggregated insights that you might get out of having some better reporting capabilities. I'm going to go to one more report now. That's this historical costs. And I'm going to spend a bit of time on this one. We used to spend a lot of time at the company I worked for on our estimates and getting our phase codes structured and organized. So in this case, this particular data set is I might have phase groupings here. In this case, they're numbers, but they might be, grading, paving, and creating meaning into that. I've got a second phase here. In this case, I got potholing, but it might have been paving, sweeping, other things. And we had a third phase as well. But if I was an estimator and I wanted to say, well, how am I doing on potholing? I could come to this historical cost report and start getting some insights into this. And so what I'm really comparing in this case is estimated unit cost versus actual unit cost. And what I've got is a variance between the two. And what I'm plotting is the variance. And the reason why the variance is important to me is that's how good am I doing against my estimated actual cost from a bidding point of view, or even from a job execution point of view. As a project manager and I'm starting a new job, I might want to come and look at this historical cost to see, what should I expect potholing to exist to cost me, and how might I go about that work. A couple things alarm me about my cost here in potholing. One is that a whole bunch of jobs I beat my costs, and you think, well, that's good. I bid something and I did it for less. That's the green means that's good. And so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 green bars. I've got 3 red bars. Well, the reason I would say that could be alarming is that at the estimate stage, is it possible I'm leaving jobs behind if I'm if I've overestimated my cost and I don't have the right markup, I may not get work, particularly if it's publicly bid. So the fact that I'm slanted towards the green is good from a cost perspective, but it may not be good from a getting work and getting business perspective. I guess in my mind, in an ideal world, the reds and the greens would balance out. You're not going to meet your actual cost every single time, but you should sometimes. So that's this chart here, that kind of the meaning I'm getting out of that. When you're looking for outliers, things that are exceptions, the other thing I would have expected and I would have hoped is that these dots, this is again estimated unit cost plotted by actual unit cost. And if I'm really good at estimating and I understand my actual cost will be when we're doing the work, these dots should be aligned on a straight line that goes up about 45 degrees, right? So we'd end up 50 and 50 and 100 and 100, and they'd be clustered around that. But what I see here is there's no correlation whatsoever. This tells me that I might have a opportunity to narrow down my execution of potholing or my estimating of it. or get those two together. Right now, it looks like whatever we estimate has nothing to do with what we're actually spending. And so that just means the check for correlation also includes the check for no correlation. In this case, no correlation means I've got some work to do. I've in this case have made it to where I'm looking at the size of the dot by estimated total estimated cost. Right, so this is a larger job and this is a larger job. Again, I might have thought of some relationship where larger jobs beat cost or didn't, but again, I don't see even that correlation. You could always have all sorts of other ways to look at this. These could be color coded by private or public or by market codes, so that if you're trying to figure out where's the outlier, where's the anomaly, you're going to find out by looking at these type of charts and this type of analysis. So lots to be done in all of these. You're looking at historical costs or WIP reports or cash flow, getting out of the old standard version of a report that is looking at data from a moment in time. This is still good, but it's not as good as analytics can be as you start embracing these new technologies and looking for those elements. David, any questions? You seem to be muted, David.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, we did have a few questions that I wanted to get to. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again, if that's okay.
Okay.
And thank you, Ben. That was very enlightening. I'm glad that your days of printing reports are gone and behind
Yeah.
you. I'm sure the environment is happy with that as well. But yeah, I wanted to before I get into questions, I wanted to just quickly point out that if you guys are or anyone at your company is interested in getting hands-on with Power BI, we are doing a workshop next week where our training director, Michelle Workmeister, is going to lead an interactive workshop where you're going to build your own construction dashboard in Power BI. So make sure you check out our events page on our website if you're interested in that. And with that, Ben, I'm going to go into a few questions. So one of the questions I had was around if we could share the interactive Magic Quadrant report, and I can share that. I'll have our team follow up when we follow up with the recording and slides to include that as well. Another question we had that came in, Ben, was can CIE or can cash in excess or billings in excess be two columns instead of one column on the WIP report?
Yeah, that's a good question. In fact, it can be and should be on a final WIP report. In my case, because I was trying to draw the net change cash in excess in a single waterfall chart, I merged into two. But if you're creating a real WIP report, you would want to sum up all the costs in excess, get a single number, all the bills in excess, get a single number, and then you can categorize those as assets or liabilities as appropriate. So they actually, there's reason to have all three individual columns and a combined column in your analytics data set.
Okay, makes sense. Another question we had was, can I plot units per hour instead of dollars per unit in the historical cost report?
Yeah, that's again, I did see that at the company I worked for. Most companies are looking at dollars per unit, but that ratio could, depending on what you're building, it might be more, accessible if it's units per dollar, or even units per hour or hours per unit. All those are just variations of the exact same type of metric, and each company's gonna want to see it a little bit different way, but it's all possible.
Okay, great. Another question we had here is how can I see the details in some of these reports? So I guess maybe going from the aggregated levels of analysis down to the more granular level.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so the data models that we build are built on the details. So when you're looking at a report, it's a summary of detailed data. So we bring in job cost details, general ledger details, And so in any case, there's a way to build this drill through report in Power BI that lets you say, okay, if I was looking at maybe that estimated the actual cost on the potholing, I can set up a drill through there to I can say, well, what did we do? You know, this one was at $41 per unit. What equipment did we use? How many hours did we spend? What was the crew like? And so the details do give that next layer of insight into why is it that my estimated and my actual are actually so far apart.
Yeah, that's a great point. You think it really being able to see the details can also just help business users establish trust in the data, which I
Yeah.
think is also very important as well, as we pointed out. All right, cool. Well, I don't see any other questions. So just wrap up here and say thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your busy day to join us, and hope you got some insights out of it. And you can see our emails here. Feel free to reach out to either myself or Ben if you have any questions. And hope everybody has a great rest of your week and happy holidays. See ya.
Thanks, everybody.